Alright, in this video I want to get into King James onlyism. Now, I felt like looking into what people are saying against the King James Bible, and I heard about this fella, James White, who was speaking out against King James onlyism, and I decided to look him up, and I saw a video entitled James White Refutes King James Onlyism, Sam Gipp. And I watched it because I know Sam Gipp. I don't know him personally, but I know of his videos where he talks about King James onlyism and why you should be a King James onlyist. For myself, I just keep it simple. I just say, well, look at all the Bibles, right? All of these that we see are copywritten, which means man owns them. It's the work of man. Man can make money off of it. If you want to copy them, you want to quote them, you want to do all kinds of work with them, you got to deal with some copyright issues. The King James is not copywritten because it's the Word of God. And you can use it as you see fit. Memorize it, copy it, do all kinds of work with it. You won't have to deal with man whatsoever because man has no authority over it because it's the actual Word of God. That's how simple I am. That's all I need. But other people, they like to get into detail. So, I don't mind doing that. So anyway, I decided to get into this fella's video. For the first 9 minutes or so, he was just kind of basically puffing himself up, making these claims, but not backing them up. And I was just being patient because I was like, he's saying these things, but he's not backing them up. But maybe he will later on. And it was kind of annoying, kind of tested my patience a little bit. But I stuck with it. And at about 9:10, he said something ridiculous. That's 9 minutes in, 10 seconds. Right around there. Might have been, 5-10 seconds before that. He showed a clip from Sam Gipp talking about how there's only two Bibles. There's the King James that's based off the Textus Receptus, and all the other Bibles are just the same because they're all based off of the Alexandrian text. And what this fella here says is that's not true because it's so simple. Just like, what? It's not true because it's so simple? And that was just showing me the arrogance this guy has and how smart he thinks he is and how he's relying on himself. You see, if I were to say something as simple as I point my finger and say that's down, and I point my finger up and say that's up, that's super simple. Down is down where I'm pointing, and up is up where I'm pointing. You know what? I'll use my mouse cursor here. This is down. This is up. That's so simple it can't be true. This is left. This is right. Too simple, can't be true. When he said that, I was like, he better say something ingenious after this, because that was pretty ridiculous to say that it's not true because it's so simple. No, that's actually the exact opposite. If you understand something, you can break it down to its simplest form so that even a child can grasp it, because that's how well you know it, is that you can just simplify it. Like something like E equals mc squared, right? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. You simplified something because of how well you understand it, right? So anyway, what he goes on to say is that, yeah, it's true that the King James is based off the Textus Receptus, and the others are based off the Alexandrian. And the Alexandrian does have thousands of differences, but they're the oldest. And he says the Vaticanus, they also have like hundreds or if not more errors in it too because of the differences. And it was like, okay, you didn't say anything brilliant at all. You actually backed up what he said. You exactly said what he said. but you make it sound like what he said was wrong and what you're saying is right, even though it's the exact same thing. The Alexandrian has all these differences and all these errors. So does the Vaticanus. That's why they're unreliable. And he does say that they're the oldest, yes. But think of it like this. This is the way I put it. Let's say I am 20 years old and I buy myself a King James Bible and I buy myself an ESV. And I notice that the ESV has missing verses and some errors, so I stop using the ESV and I put it away. And I use the heck out of my King James Bible so that 80 years later, I have to buy a new King James because it's just too worn out, rebinded, all this stuff. It's done. So I had to just put it aside, maybe even throw it away, God forbid. But let's just say it was that bad where it was just useless. I had to get a whole new King James Bible, right? And then 20 years later, I die, and somebody comes and they find the date of my King James, and they're like, oh, this is only 20 years old. But hey, well, look at this ESV. It is 100 years old. That must mean it is better. No, that's not what it means. It means that it was crap, and I never used it, and that's why it's still in good condition. You see, with these Alexandrian and other such texts like that, they weren't being used in the churches to teach. They weren't copying them. They weren't translating them. So they stayed in better condition. The Textus Receptus, they were using them. They were copying them. They were translating them. So they were being used so much that the originals would be worn out. So they would have to start using the copies. And that's why you have so many manuscripts in the Textus Receptus, because they were using them and copying them and translating them. And that's why they get used up, so that you don't have the older originals, because they were used up until they were useless. And just because you found something older doesn't make it better. It makes it so, hey, why didn't anybody use this? Why is it so fresh? How did this last so long? Because nobody used it. It's common sense. Especially when you look at it and you say to yourself, oh, there's thousands of differences, which is errors because they contradict. They don't line up. So why are you going to use it? It's not rocket science. You don't have to make it complicated. Why make it complicated? Well, because you want to peddle some kind of bullshit? That's the only reason why to do it. You want to lie. You want to push your agenda. That's the only reason to do it. Then at about 14:55 into his video, he says just something. It's just too stupid, and this guy's just being so manipulative that I had to stop watching after this. He says it's not true, after he talked about all this, that there's only two Bibles. Yes, the King James is the only one that's based off the Textus Receptus and maybe the New King James, and all the others are based off the Alexandrian. You catch that? But that doesn't mean there's two Bibles. Yes, because only one is based off the Textus Receptus. All the others are based off the Alexandrian, which means they're two different Bibles, because one's based off of a completely different set of texts. So how can you say that they're the same? It's the exact same argument that they brought up, is they're different because they're based off of different manuscripts. But he went and said, no, there isn't two different Bibles. Yes, the King James is based off the Textus Receptus, and all the others are based off the Alexandrian, but yeah, that's not two different. Two things that are not the same are different. Two things that are different are not the same. This guy wants to overly complicate it and talk a whole lot of fluff. He's very manipulative. He's just a pompous, lying ass. And I don't feel like wasting time going through his video. I mean, it's 90% just fluff. And then you get a little bit of content. Like I watched 15 minutes and there's only two things to actually bring up. Because he makes no points to defend all the other Bible versions. And he makes no claims to defeat using the King James only. Nothing. He actually backs it up and acts as though he broke it down and attacked it and destroyed the argument, when he said the exact same argument but tried to say that it wasn't the same. Let me put it in a different way, just in case you're having trouble grasping this. It's like I say, let's bring up a picture here. Let's go red light, green light real quick. Just something quick and simple I can bring up here. That this guy he's trying to say the opposite, right? Like I say, let me make this a little bigger for you. Just click on it. Okay. Let's say I'm saying this first row has the green light lit up, the middle row has the yellow light lit up, this last row has the red light lit up, right? He comes along, he wants to disagree, and he's like, that's not what's going on. What we have in the last row is the red light lit up, in the middle row, the yellow light is lit up, and in the first row, the green light is lit up. So he says the exact same thing and makes it sound as though he's saying the opposite. He just agreed with me, but he's talking as if he refuted me and he said something completely different. When all he did was say the exact same thing, he just said it, in this case, backwards. He said it differently. Instead of doing the first row, second row, third row, he did the third row, second row, first row. Matter of fact, this is another way he did it. First row, green light's on. Second row, yellow light is on. Third row, green light's on. He comes around and says, first row, the red light and yellow light are not on. The second row, the red light and the green light are not on. And the third row, the yellow light and the green light are not on. So it's like, yeah, so you agree with me. You just said what I said. You just said it differently. But you're acting like you're refuting me and you're saying the exact opposite. And I was like, this guy is just manipulative. He's a manipulative, lying prick. And why would anybody waste their time with somebody like that? You want to sit through a video of somebody doing that? The only people who do that is people who just want to find a reason to believe whatever it is they believe. In this case, they don't want to believe in the King James Bible. So they listen to somebody like this to make their conscience feel good about not believing in the King James and believing in some other Bible that is obviously from man, since man has it copywritten and can sue you for doing certain things with it. So, with that being said, thanks for watching and take care.